If you consider yourself to be hypervigilant or notice that sometimes you are a little bit hypervigilant in your day-to-day actions, then join me for a few minutes because I am going to talk you through this and then also walk you through an exercise that you can do to start teaching your body to feel safer so that you can move through this pattern. Because it is one thing understanding that you are hypervigilant, and I'm going to talk about what that is in a second, and cognitively understanding the reasons why. And it is another thing altogether to actually be in a place where that is no longer your experience. And I'm guessing that you would rather the latter. You would rather have that be a thing of the past. So, what is hypervigilance? How does it happen? So, hypervigilance is when we are in a state of constant high alert. We are looking out for people, we're looking for threats, we're overthinking, we're in our heads, we're kind of panicking. And if I was going to give you a visual for it, it's like this. Like, what's going on? How do I manage things around me? How do I manage myself? What mood are they going to be in today? Now, lots of things can cause hypervigilance. A lot of the time, it comes from childhood when we have a caregiver who we don't necessarily feel safe around or they aren't consistent. So, if you had a parent who sometimes was loving and present and caring, and then other times was disconnected, a little bit volatile, maybe physically or emotionally abusive, then you're constantly on the lookout for like, what version am I going to get today? How do I need to react? How do I need to be? So that they don't punish me in whatever way you may have been punished when they're in that mood. And hypervigilance in many ways is a superpower, okay, because we learn very quickly to read and adapt to the energy of others. So we can see what's going on for them, we can see their mood, and then we can adapt ourselves. But it's exhausting, right? Because we're then constantly on the lookout for what is going on. So when we are hypervigilant, we are attuned to and constantly looking out for threat. Okay, because the number one role of the nervous system, which runs throughout the body, is to keep you safe. So your survival is its number one job. And so what we want to do is to start to teach the nervous system that it doesn't need to constantly be on the lookout for threat. It can attune to and focus on things that are relaxing and calming and pleasant. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through an exercise that you can start to do, which will start to help you retrain your nervous system out of this hypervigilant, constantly on high alert mode into one where you are able to rest and relax and feel safe. Because again, as a small child, if you didn't learn that it was safe for you to rest in the relationship, you knew mum, you knew dad, they'd got you, they had you safe, you could just relax. Most of us didn't get that experience, but we can learn to have that experience now as adults. So the exercise that I'm going to walk you through is called orienting to pleasure. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk you through it as we do it so you understand it, and then we'll just do a little bit of it kind of separately afterwards. So you can see this as a combination of training, but then also an exercise that you can do. So when we orient to pleasure, that's the fancy term of like looking around the room and orienting to your space. And so we do this, you can do this with me now, by slowly and gently moving and looking around and literally just taking in what is around you. Now, when we do this, we want to do a decent amount of neck movement. So you can see I'm not just like looking around with my eyes, I'm actually doing it with my head. I'm looking around and moving the neck a lot. Now, the reason for this is because, and you can test this for yourself, if you put your fingers at the back of your head where your skull and your neck meet, so that's where the brainstem and spinal cord meet, if you then move your head around, you will notice that you are then putting pressure on your fingers, okay, as you move around. And so when you do this, again, you're putting pressure on that point where the brainstem and the spinal cord meet, and you are sending signals down the vagus nerve to your body that it can be safe and it can go into more of a relaxed state. So in nervous system language, this is that it can go into a more parasympathetic state, that kind of rest and digest out of the hypervigilant, high alert, fight or flight mode. Okay. So again, if you just want to feel it, put the fingers back there. If you're like, yep, I've got that now, you can move those away. So you're looking around and you're just noticing what you notice in this space. It's also a lovely way for you to connect into the present moment, to feel a little bit more grounded, a little bit more here. Because again, with hypervigilance, we're often off somewhere else in a little panic in our heads. And as you do this, you can just start to pay attention to your breathing. You're not trying to change your breath, you're just noticing. So noticing the breath. I often find when I do this that I might start to yawn or start to take deeper breaths. So yawning, far from the kind of societal accepted thing that it's like tiredness or boredom, often yawning is a sign of the body going into that parasympathetic state. Okay, so it's all good. So we just notice that. We can bring our attention to the heart rate as well. Just notice. Again, we're not trying to change it. Sometimes this exercise might mean that your heart rate speeds up. Other times it will, you'll notice that it will slow down. So you're just doing that and just noticing what you notice. And then, and this is where the pleasure bit comes in, I want you to notice as you look around your environment, if there is anything that you can look at that is pleasant in some way for you to bring your attention to. So it could be that you have a photo on the wall of your family or a holiday photo. It could be that you've like just something in your space that's lovely. You can do this out in nature, and it might be that you notice a tree or a flower. There isn't a right or wrong. You just get to look around and notice, okay, is there anything in this space that is pleasant to look at? So I will give you an example. I have a bar of soap wrapped up in a ribbon on my desk, and this is to remind me that my work is a gift, okay, and that what I bring is a gift because it's easy to forget. And so when I look at this, various things happen. So first of all, it like calms me. It's lovely to look at. It also smells nice because it's lavender and rosemary. And it also makes me chuckle a little bit inside because this was actually a present from my husband for Christmas 2023. I don't use soap because my skin gets dry. So when I got it, I was deeply ungrateful for it. But then it's turned out to have incredible uses. So I also have to giggle as well about like that experience. But so I can notice when I look at it that it calms me down. I feel more settled. It makes me smile. It changes how I feel inside. Okay. And it allows me to connect into right now. It allows me to connect into that memory. These are all resources. They're all things that help us to feel a little bit more safe, a little bit more organized inside. Now, as basic as this might seem, what you're actually doing in this process is teaching your nervous system that it has the capability of feeling safe, of noticing things that are pleasant. And it also teaches you that actually, no matter how I'm feeling, spending a couple of minutes being present, orienting to my environment, finding something to look at, I do notice a slight shift. Okay. And that slight shift might be a yawn, it might be a deeper breath, it might be that you actually feel your anxiety going down, you feel yourself relaxing. It might be that when you look at the thing, it evokes a memory and you just notice this little jolt of happiness or this little jolt of joy or this little jolt of just something a little bit more positive. And the more that you do this, the more the results compound, because this is like one of the fundamental exercises of learning to regulate your nervous system. It's retraining and rewiring those processes so that rather than the brain constantly be on the lookout for threat and how people are and what might be going wrong and all of this hypervigilance, over time it learns that it can rest, that it can relax, that it can just take in nice things, that it can just be. So I hope you found this super, super helpful. would really recommend that you just spend a couple of minutes twice a day. It's a lovely thing to do when you wake up. It's a lovely thing to do like before or after a meeting, particularly if the meeting is a bit for you. Um, just to start to rewire and change some of those patterns. So lots of neck movement, looking around the space, looking for something that is pleasant to look at, something that evokes a kind of a memory, or something that is positive for you, allowing your eyes to be drawn to that for a few moments, taking some breath and just noticing what happens. And the more you can bring your attention to things like your breathing and your heart rate, maybe feeling your feet on the floor, the more it will allow you to be present and connected into your day-to-day experience. So I hope you found this helpful. If this sort of work is work that you are feeling drawn to, that you would like to do more of, learn more about, please come and speak to me. And this is a tool that I use with clients like general nervous system regulation. In my Your Way Mastermind, I'm actually going to be teaching some of this work so that you can feel equipped to help other people with body work and nervous system regulation. And then in all of my memberships, this kind of work forms an absolute foundation, because when we are in our bodies, able to work with ourselves rather than spending all of our times in our heads, it's when we are able to actually heal, actually shift our patterns, and actually get stuff done in the way that we want. So if you want to know more, come and say hello to me. Otherwise, add this one to your toolbox, let it change you, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. Ciao.